April My first test, I was 44 points higher than I was before on my chloride levels, because I'm a regular over to 29 Hazen Drive in Concord as far as testing. I test my property. I've got one out on Smoke Street right now that we're waiting for. I've got two in our pond, because the pond tends to collect things. It was 96, 94, last year, and I'll bet it's gonna be well over 100 this time, because there's so much salt dumped in there, and everything just filters into it. There are two wells, dug wells, that are 18 feet deep on West Lane, mine and my neighbor's. And my numbers hit 370. Hers hit 200 the last time we did it. And because of this new dumping, I'll bet you she's gonna be in the hazard zone too. I hate to say it, but if we don't get this thing solved and stay under the numbers, and the numbers I'm not happy with. Toxicity to plants starts at 70 milligrams per liter. At 370, my garden has been killed. And I've got witnesses that my beans used to be 3 feet tall, plenty of beans. My corn, my cucumbers, I used to get 30 cucumbers a day. Last year I probably got 5 or 6, no beans. So the salt is definitely interrupting my lifestyle and my overall well-being over there. And that's not the kicker yet. So my tests are in progress. The two tests from the pond are due in. Photos of the sand on March 10th are available, and they were undoctored, and that's why I'd like to get a polygraph to find out who's telling the truth around here. And I think Helen's gonna attest that our little meeting was not the most cordial. Okay, Ellen supplied me with some information from Morton Salt, and as to what was in it, and who they were getting it from, and so forth. So they sent me a material safety data sheet. And you know what I found in the middle of that? There is cyanide in road salt. Cyanide is cumulative, and it's at a certain level, you're gone. And I don't need cyanide in my well. I've got a cyanide test coming up. And because that's a marker, that shows that it's a town, the road salt is doing it. I don't think we had cyanide. Arsenic we have in the water around here, but not cyanide. So that's in progress, and I'll probably be doing some other wells for cyanide. We don't need that whatsoever. We've been charting the results of the neighbors. Right now, there are 3 wells that I would say are in jeopardy, and we have a position to put a common well in, ain't gonna be cheap, especially with the town situation. But if we work together and go after the contractors, it's gonna change everything. If I have to sue the town, good luck, guys. A former town employee has got a photograph that I'm gonna be getting of dumping of salt when Sean McLean was here. A whole truckload of salt just dumped. So I'm going to be getting that photograph here pretty soon. I'd also like to have you take a look at RSA 231.81. It's RSA 231.81. It's a Camp Road winter maintenance program. It's something that I'd like to evaluate for doing on Kelsey East and West Lanes. So if they don't come down with the salt, we'll continue to contaminate our property. Oh, by the way, on March 13th of last year, they put up nice little signs, low salt area. Then they come down and they bury us with salt. Again, I'm not impressed. I think the gross negligence that's involved here is beyond reproach, especially in the jury trial. The Romans had lead pipes. They didn't know. It's like the cyanide and with road salt. We're facing the same thing. We don't know at this point. We have just cut the arsenic level in half from what it was. I've got a cousin that's got a community property up in Moultonborough. And the arsenic, it cost him $40,000 to put the right filtration in to get it balanced right. So arsenic is a groundwater problem. My well was always a surface well, and it was beautiful until, the last 2 town administrative people, highway people got involved, or the contractors, or whoever was responsible for the over salting. Also, going way back, back when Chet Baxter, the former tax collector, was on the salt truck. It was a van, and Archie Ferner was driving. They used to throw out a little bit of salt on the roads, only on the hills. So our consumption of salt might have been 2 or 3 tons, because you don't put much in a van. And now we're up to 1,600 ton per year for 3 years in a row. That's kind of excessive. Lee is at 600, and I thought that was excessive. Yeah, the EPA, I've been over to Concord quite a bit. It's got alarms on the rise of salt in the ponds and the rivers all over now. And they're about to start blowing the whistle on the salt situation. I think what we're going to eventually go for is legislation that will prevent the salting of the roads and destroying of wells and property in the towns where they're town roads. The state's already taken care of it. That's a precedent. But the town roads, you're on your own. And that's why this is my 5th meeting. The other 4 have been you guys have been kind of mute. And like I say, John, I can spend time with you to show him some of the evidence that I have at this time. And it's building quickly, especially with the second dumping. And that's documented already on that meeting on the 28th, I think it was. Okay, I've talked to Deerfield, I've talked to Sandwich, I've talked to a lot of town highway departments. Sandwich uses 30 tons a year of salt. It's a small town, they don't have that much in roads, but 30 tons compared to our 1,600. So we're kind of out of balance, and that was $100,000 in expense that we didn't need to spend. Because sand works beautifully. Back in the 1940s, New Hampshire was the first state to use road salt. Back in the 60s, we came up with radial tires. The pattern stayed open, they became like snow tires. They could dig in and go. With sand, if you know how to drive, you can go even on black ice, anywhere you want to go. I put over 2 million miles on my cars over the years, and I don't have any problems. Black ice, snow, even 8 inches of snow is not a big deal. Even with my summer tires this past year, when we get 8 inches, I've got a 4.5 degree rise coming out of my street for about 100 feet, right up and over, gone, no problem. So if you know how to drive, and a lot of people don't, they just want to do 60 miles an hour down my road, and with a stopwatch at 270 feet, when they do that in 3 seconds, 88 feet per second to 60, and they're doing 270 in 3 seconds, they're doing 60. But it's a 25 mile an hour zone. So even on the ice and snow, they want to be going as much as they can. That's probably enough for tonight. I'm working full-time on this now with the state, with different towns to build a case. And I think if we work together, it's not going to cost us a legal fee that's going to quit. If we don't work together, if we fight each other, good luck, guys, because I've got a son that's going to back me up. I'm even to the case where I could even be on food stamps if I need to. So that might even be a factor for getting an attorney. So that's probably the nut.
If you could share the information, any information that you have for well tests and stuff, and share that with Ellen so she can.
I have. She's already got it.
No, I'm getting more updated.
Updated, it's coming in.
Yeah, because we have all, I can share all of it, we can share all the information with John from last year.
Okay. But I've expanded my well testing out to Smoke Street, on the other side of East Lane. Anywhere that I think there's a problem. And I found that my next door neighbor's at 16 milligrams per liter, and I'm at 370. Ouch. With the salt. So there's something just not right here. And I'm looking to take action. And I know you got a real crunch on the money side of it. If we go after the contractors that did it, which I believe are the 2 contractors that were involved, which means Deerfield, Sand and Gravel, and Farrell, we might be able to bail out of this thing without killing the budget. That's what I have to tell you this evening, and we'll be in touch real soon. At least I'll be in touch with Ellen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll go on to reviewing some of these stuff. Do you have anything?
Right, no, I'll just have to.
There's a
caught
little
up on
packet.
some- I'm
Yeah.
sure there is.
So action items from the last meeting, the policies review, smoking safety complaint, board of conduct, and rules of procedure. Because I think you updated the smoking policy and you guys finalized that at the last meeting?
The smoking policy was reviewed, we discussed it, I don't think there were any changes to it, it's just a matter of holding it over to the next meeting to see if you're ready to adopt it or not.
Okay. And then safety,
The safety we discussed, I just have to make the few changes that were recommended by Primex.
okay,
And then I want to put it before the Joint Loss Safety Committee, just for their final review to come back.
and then the complaint policy, which I know we've talked about.
Yep, so there is no complaint policy in place right now. It was repealed in 2016. John Moran actually shared with me, he found just a template form from the town of Orford for consideration. If you want to put something in place, I mean, if you want to have a formal form, and then we had discussed maybe putting on something on the website that just kind of gives direction on how to do it. I'm kind of the position where I don't necessarily know that you need a formal policy. We just need to be able to guide people on how to make it and where.
Yeah, I agree that we probably don't need a policy as long as we capture the correct information, whether it's a formal form or even if somebody says, here's my complaint, and you have all the same information. But as Linda had said, we do need to kind of capture historical information so that we can track things.
So maybe even keeping it in an electronic folder.
Right,
Yeah.
so a folder, some kind of, the database or whatever, but, it's,
And part of what came through on the emails that we discussed in my report, Linda had drafted up a spreadsheet for tracking, which I think would be pretty helpful. My only concern with that is, I guess differentiating what comes in as a complaint, like if somebody calls and says, I have a pothole on my road, I mean, like, are we literally
Right.
documenting every ounce of what comes in, which is going to be an administrative nightmare? But, I mean, we loosely do it now. If somebody comes in, we have a highway tracking spreadsheet that we, just so like Betsy and I aren't giving redundant information to the highway director, that way we can at least know who.
the one thing though, if we know we track it, we could check off, it's been resolved.
Right.
That's the important thing,
It is.
so even if it's just a pothole and it takes how much ever time, we could say, yep, filled, check.
But sometimes we don't necessarily know that it got filled. Like we refer it to the department and assume that it gets taken care of until
Right,
the next
but-
complaint, and it didn't.
Yeah, well, we need feedback from the departments to say that they addressed it.
It's a work that it can be a work in progress. We can get there.
Mhm.
So I will start by either revamping the form that John shared and get something posted online.
Would there be some sort of like electronic form that you could use that could be shared through Microsoft with the town departments? So that way if there is something that comes up, it's put on this form, they get an email, an alert, hey, I need to check this out, and then they can actually enter the information when it was resolved, like versus doing it email after email.
I'm sure that technology is definitely available.
Well,
How much is it gonna cost us?
it's Microsoft.
Yeah, but somebody still has to put it all together.
Somebody has to create
Somebody's gotta create the form, somebody's gotta,
we can get there. It'll take some time, but we'll get there.
And then for BOS Code of Conduct, you guys reviewed it?
I read it earlier, but
Yeah.
haven't.
I think it was mainly just to familiarize yourself with it.
Yeah.
Same thing with the rules and procedure, just to see if there's any recommended changes moving forward.
I don't know.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay. And then the rental agreement for the old fire station, we've already talked about that.
Mhm.
Town beach, I did see it was discussed.
Yep, the town beach was discussed. I've reached out to Primex to see what their, just to talk about liability coverage and the such. And we're in a situation like we are with most agreements that have been in place for a long time, nothing formal in writing. They would like to see us get at least an MOU or an agreement in place with the property owners so we can outline what the expectations are and who's responsible for what and when. So I've reached out to the town attorney to help
What was
with
that
drafting
What was the initial, MO what?
MOU, memorandum of understanding.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I am working on that and we will have to get in touch with the property owners and get that all laid out. But really for liability standpoint, right now, the town's obligation in terms of liability is only when we're allowed to use that access road, which is the period of Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Right. Well, that makes sense.
My concern is only 8 weeks until that,
Yes, so that's why this is in process.
okay.
Do we need to meet with the landowner before and get everything?
Yes, I think we do have some expectation now that the new signage has been put up, that we can start as a basis, and then once we start the document, then we can mold it to fit everybody's needs.
Fine.
The road posting was lifted last Thursday. We put an announcement out on the website. That was at the direction of the road agent. I'm sorry, the highway director. And then Kevin Bassett is, he actually reached out last Thursday. He's looking for a copy of the legal information. And I think he was looking for additional information on Indian Run and Channel as far as the link to help with the survey. So that is all still in process.
So he's still working on the survey?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe he's waiting on that information from us is on the two roads. They need to be able to
There's some question
identify
like
them on the survey.
911 might have already said that the roads were X amount long. So like
Okay.
so if he makes a survey, say one thing and then 911 says another, they're trying to minimize the conflict. So I think they're trying to get these to match,
Yes, that's a new name too, so.
which is recognized everywhere, including in 911. He's formalizing it on the.
because the roads weren't outlined in the subdivision for that section. So he needs to lay the roads out as they are. You had one assessing item that you skipped over.
Oh, sorry.
See that?
Yeah,
It's in the signature folder, I believe.
It was in the email too.
oh, was that for the property tax?
Yes,
Oh, okay. So that was a $7 refund.
Yeah.
correct.
What do we normally do?
This is the first time this has occurred to me. But,
Yeah.
the issue was that the taxpayer mailed her tax, the check for her taxes, and it was in a specific envelope, but it was postmarked after the date, but
It didn't get postmarked, it didn't get canceled by the post office until it was received in West Nottingham. So even though it was mailed out of Nottingham, it's either gone to Boston or Manchester. It took 2.5 weeks in transit to actually get back to West Nottingham Post Office, which is where the tax collector's mailbox is. So when that happens, the only thing that the tax collector has to go off of is the postmark. So she received the payment the date that it was postmarked, which was January 17th, which created interest due. And when the payment comes in, the payment gets applied first to interest and then to principal. So it left the residual balance of $7 plus accruing interest.
Right.
Now,
I'm perfectly fine with forgiving the $7, but I didn't want to set precedents or change a precedence that's already been set.
I think it would be an exception more than just because she has a lot of evidence that she did send it out, but again, the postmarking issue
I,
2.5 weeks is a little excessive.
right, it's honestly,
The tax collector's mailbox is at the West Nottingham Post
Yes.
Office?
yes.
Yep, it's been there for,
Ever.
It's a great question.
well, and the other question is, you know, is a delay because the envelope was addressed to our physical address.
Yeah.
And not the address that's on the tax bill. So could that have created additional delay? Because we actually,
Probably.
If it went to
I'm sure it
Manchester or
did.
Boston, probably went to Boston. 'Cause
and
then
on
they
top of
could've-
the fact that there was holidays there in the beginning, the
Right.
first of the year. So
Right.
it's all relative.
Sorry.
And the selectmen
I
are the
don't
only
care.
ones that have the ability to abate for good cause. So that's why it's before you.
I take my mail to the Reagan mailbox. It's a Reagan post office.
It's closer for you.
Well, it is close.
So
No,
doesn't
it's
make
not the
sense.
same.
Why is it's not, so the rest of the town mail goes to this post office, but
Correct.
just the tax collector goes down there?
Correct.
Did one originally live at that end of town or something?
They did.
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, yes.
So
And I think it still works for the current tax collector as well.
why does
But
it
the
actually
buildings-
go to a whole separate mailbox anyway instead of the?
Because the tax collector is responsible for the receipt of the tax payments. So it's a control thing.
Okay, it was a control. Okay, so that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Since it has to be a control thing.
Not a control by the person, a control by the position.
Control, right, I understood that.
Even if it came down here, it'd have to have.
Yeah,
separate-
absolutely.
Right, yeah, because I was gonna say, if we could just eliminate the post office box, that would save us $6 a year.
Okay.
More than that.
Now I guess I understand why it goes down.
It
It's
used to be
just,
$6.
I could see how that,
$82 for a post office box now? Guess it's been a while since I've been to the post office box.
yeah, it definitely sounds like there's some circumstances there. Why it doesn't just get here.
I've been told that, mail now goes from Nottingham to Boston rather than Manchester.
Not,
I don't think
not
that's-
yet,
That-
Right.
Yeah,
Will we?
maybe.
maybe.
That's so crazy.
That's up to the federal government.
Oh,
They've talked about closing, it's a potential to close Manchester.
wow.
What's, no, it still has to be controlled. It's gotta be a control thing. We can't have, yeah, okay, whatever.
So can I get a motion to approve the abatement?
I'll make a motion to approve, the abatement on map 37, lot 25-13.
I'll second.
Motion made by Steve Welch, seconded by John Decker.
Aye, Steve Welch.
Hi, John Decker.
Aye, Tim DeBrio.
I'm not sure.
She spent $10. I came over $7 abatement.
$10 of the stipend we're not getting.
Yeah.
And then any action items for our next meeting?
Do we need to talk about the well stuff? Or,
I don't know if that was kind of like a statement and then he kind of just walked out. So I don't know what he's expecting next.
I think he's waiting for the results from his recent well testing that he had done. I think the most recent results that we have were from August of last year.
Okay.
And I think maybe one of the neighboring properties submitted a well test in October, so I mean, we can bring those all back out for review.
Well,
I
Just
did
speaking-
speak with
okay,
Steve Rollins on this, actually, he was correct. Steve just happened to be in the office when he stopped in one day last week, and Steve was standing his ground that the only property, or the only areas that are receiving full salt treatment are here and at the fire department, just because they're public safety buildings. The rest of it, even the subcontracted trucks, are all grabbing from the same mix. So that's where, it was a dead end conversation, because Steve was saying, no, it's this way, and Frank was saying, no, it was 100% salt application. So they were agreeing that they were going to disagree. And I don't know, I guess I do question the salt application. I mean, we've only, based on the research that I provided to Mr. Gonzalez, we've only purchased, I think, 517 ton of salt as of when I pulled the invoices, and that was through the middle of February. We did estimate, based on the prior year consumption, it cost approximately 1,600 ton to purchase, just to be able to lock into the state contracted price. But I mean, we're not near that. I do know that we're dwindling down because they're trying to empty the shed so that they can do some repairs to the.
Right. But he said we're gonna have some left over for next season from December.
Yes,
Think
yes.
about what happens on
Yeah.
Wednesday.
So I do think that, you know, you can see a pattern that there has been a significant amount of salt use this year, but we've also had different winter weather conditions than we've had in years past too, so.
I know a few seasons ago that we had a ton of salt dumped on our road. And Dee called and, you know, to say that, you know, that there's too much salt, whatever, and, but it turned out that the sander was
Was not
broken
calibrated or something.
The calibration of
Yeah, so they appreciated that and it seemed better after that, but I can't imagine that happens multiple times at the same place. You know, I could see it happening on occasion, but
So the other thing that Steve brought up to me is West Lane in particular, there's no area for them to turn around. It's a dead end and the property owner at the end has the driveway blocked off. So they have to pull down in and then back out to do one lane and then they have to back down in and pull out. So there might be,
But they would shut it off, I mean, if the backing up is
I mean, honestly.
it's still the same number of.
Honestly, one pass is probably all they need down the middle.
which I thought we had specifically
Addressed
pointed out
with the
this.
low salt.
Right. And one of the, you weren't part of the board, but we talked about this last year, is he mentioned the state. So the state does have a well replacement program with specific criteria for it. And one of the pieces is 1 year of like third-party testing on wells. And so there's a specific process in place. I'm not sure how, I mean, I've only been on the board for a
Yeah,
year, so I'm not sure
that
how often
and-
this happens, but
They also they had an engineer come out and take a look at the way that the water runs off onto the property to determine if there's an issue there with drainage. Also in this case, you know, Steve went out there and took a look and he said that this property in particular actually sits higher than the road. I think he said it's like 6 to 8 inches higher than the road, so it's not a matter of like the salt draining onto his property, it's draining further down the road to probably the neighboring properties. So there are a bunch of factors, and that was part of the reason why the board responded initially to the request and said until there's a set of standards in place to deal with an issue like this, there was no further action.
so I think we just need to
His
get
his
some-
well off of West Lane is closer than that filing cabinet, like it is basically in the road, it's very close. So I can see where he's gonna get fluctuations.
Right,
And
and it's a
I don't
dug,
know.
and it's a dug well, so it's not very deep.
I mean, is there some, like, we've basically gone to low salt in that area anyway, but
You keep saying referring to as West Lane, it's Kelsey Road, right?
that's part of it. Kelsey is the front of his house, West Lane is the side street that he
Oh,
knows
okay,
there.
thank
There's two parallel roads, West and East Lane, and there's a pond in the back. But they're very,
So it's all part of Kelsey then?
No, it's a
No.
road off of Kelsey. It's
He's
a
on-
very small road off of Kelsey.
very small. I drove by it.
So wait for communication from him that you'll share with us.
You can wait until we get the next set of test results and we can just keep it as an ongoing item.
So some of the, like, do we know of any other town that has developed their own or mirrored any type of policy like this, or like a well replacement or testing, or
I'm not.
at minimum, it would have to
Any
match the state
research.
where a third party does it, like we don't know what he's doing to rinse his bottles out, if the test comes back high and then he takes another sample, like is he using the same bottle, like I'm sure he's trying to make it, but there's a set of how many times a bottle can be reused or what it needs to undergo for cleaning before you could take another sample from, so it's hard to just have the person that's complaining saying, this is what I got for a test, to say, okay, is that valid or not? So for the state program, it's a third party, neither person gets it, and then somebody else says, this is how we're testing, when we're testing. We need to at least have some sort of baseline to look at if we can even Or if other towns are doing this, or if they're deferring to the state, or what's happening.
I had tried looking it up last year, I couldn't find anything town specific, but again, there's a lot of towns.
I can put, I have a listserv that I could put it out to and just see if there's any towns that have experienced this.
You know, that'd be helpful.
It's tough if you're the first town trying to do it too, like, or even figure out how to take it on.
Before we move on to public comment, one of the other things that we had talked about, or there was a communication, was about the community newsletter and that what we want to do after our last budget workshop.
And I don't know if we still have time to do so because their deadline was 5 PM tonight, but I can see if there's any flexibility in that.
Because I think this would be the only one that would go out for the rest of the year.
Mhm. So just summarize what took place in the work session and that the town is moving forward with default budget.
That's pretty much it,
Yeah.
How we're covering
you know.
the gaps with either the, running the,
Well, I'm wondering, is there a way, because they have sponsors, is there a way that if they ask the sponsors to pay the bill directly rather than making a donation or sponsoring?
Well,
Sending the money to the town, because then it wouldn't be an expense, right? It wouldn't be an offsetting revenue. It would just be they're directly paying for the parade costs or something like that.
yeah, I mean, I would love to see the newsletter continue and pay for itself. If it's completely paid for itself, then would be awesome.
Either through advertisement or donations.
But again, the issue
right.
is it's still an expense we can look at the revenue, I think accounts for half of the cost right now, I believe, of producing the newsletter.
Mhm.
But again, it's still, but the
Well,
expense.
no,
there.
right, so either they have to get additional advertisers, increase fees, or both, or
Mhm.
whatever, or get donations. I know the time's donated, so in that respect, that's good, but, yeah, it would be, if we could get it to pay for itself, it would be great to see it printed. But there are options of doing electronic and
And
which doesn't cost mailing.
Right, and they wouldn't
paper.
need sponsors necessarily,
Well,
that's
you
one of the issues.
still need some, but you could probably do an online thing with no advertising, if it's just a PDF thing.
Mhm.
And just having the volunteers run it, do you really even, yeah, it would be great to have some advertising, but is it even necessary, or it's definitely less necessary?
But for this year, it's still an expense that we can't afford. So even if
Right.
the revenue's there,
Mhm.
if they got double the
Yeah.
revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can get something drafted off and circulate off to you just if I can sneak it in for the April edition.
Okay. Thank you.
Go look for something early tomorrow morning.
Of course, before I go to bed tonight.
2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, you like that.
Like upset.
If I could just say I give you special dispensation in a couple of days. Thank you.
Realize Charlotte was there.
I thought you were just playing, I was just sitting right there.
So now we'll open up the meeting to public comment. Again, if you'd like to come up, state your name and address, and then you've got about 3 minutes to make your comment. Anybody want to come up?
Hi again. I'm Nate Burns, 205 Raymond Road. This is my wife, Jenny Burns, same address. So before getting into it, I know that being on the select board is a thankless job for really any of the town boards. And so and it's a difficult time. This issue is probably the lowest of low priorities for you, dealing with budget issues. I understand that. But to us, it's an important issue. That the water crossing. It's something that, that we've gotten some really negative comments, from other people about. We've expressed concerns that you've heard before, about sound levels, about, and my wife can speak to this a little bit about, smells as well, from exhaust. But we've been told, hey, it's only 9 days a year, just leave town. Just go get a hotel, just leave town for those days if you don't like it. So we've been told, it's a couple $1,000s, no big deal, right? Just leave town. Jenny's expecting a baby in June. We certainly text a lot with our neighbors who all feel the same way, that they can't put their children down for naps. During this, say, just close the doors, close the windows. That doesn't matter. We live a couple 1,000 feet away. We don't even live right on top of it. And it's deafening inside of our house from whatever, 10 to 5, 10 to 6, 10 to 6:30, whatever the timing is. So it's a big deal to us. I'm not sure, what latitude you have to either reject the special event permit or to reduce it in days, from 3 events to, whatever you would consider. But we would appreciate that consideration. We only kind of stumbled the fact that this permit was, being discussed tonight by me looking through town minutes. It's, our neighbors didn't know about this, and so aren't here. And I can't speak for them, but I can certainly say that it's something that is a very negative aspect to quality of life, to our right to peace and quiet, relatively speaking. So just wanted to come here and say that. Anything to say?
Yeah, and it's just, in terms of quality of life, like usually when one of these weekends is coming up, we'll be like, oh shoot, we gotta get out of the house. Like we're not gonna stay home all weekend. Like maybe we can go to Portsmouth for the day or we try to find ways to get out of town, but with the baby on the way, it does change things, and we're gonna be trying to get the baby on the schedule, and it's not just gonna be easy for us to just leave town, like we've been told, so, yeah, it's a concern.
And I just want to say that, that I fully support private property rights and people being able to do whatever they want, shoot fireworks, do target practice, whatever. This is not that. This is not personal property rights. This is a business that wants to do, a commercial special event. So I think it should be seen as separate. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Yes.
Do my quick 2 cents on what's really not super important right now. Charlotte Fife, 85 Deerfield Road, the newsletter. There's a very strong feeling amongst some folks that the newsletter must continue in print. You can agree or disagree, but one of the ideas that the volunteers had was to put in a warrant article for next year and let the voters decide how important it is to them. In the meantime, John, your ideas were good, and it'd be nice to see it be self-sufficient. If we have more print, but it also means more paper and a higher cost to mail, so it's kind of a catch-22, right? It could just be all this. People really love the ads, though. It's really fun. And
That's good.
I know. So we have raised the rates, and maybe we should do.
Yeah, no, I knew that you did. So.
Yeah, so we'll see what the revenue is, but I think I wanted to cover, it is available on the town website now, so we're trying to let people know that more. And for people like myself, I prefer that myself because the links are live and it's in color, so it's quite nice. But a lot of people really seem to like it in paper format.
Honestly, I prefer to read it in paper because I like to sit in my chair and pull it out and read it.
So you're gonna be one of our sponsors. So we understand what is, but I guess I wanted to clarify, we're really not sure. We are putting out the next issue. But we're not sure right now where we stand for money. It's a little bit different every time, so I guess I would just ask Ellen when you get a chance, just, give me the up-to-date financials and, we'll.
Yeah, we actually addressed it. We had earmarked it as an area to go back and investigate for further reduction, and then we never
And
did.
we didn't,
It's a
and I
watch
didn't
item.
mention it.
It's a watch item.
Yeah, it was a watch item. So
And of course, we've already spent
And we left
some of the
the
money
Right.
that's in that line item.
Yeah, we haven't changed it yet, but we did mark it as something that.
sometimes it's easier to answer the question when it comes up rather than delay it for future. So let me go into it.
I think it's
So as of, it's earmarked for $4,000,
But we've already,
of which you've expended 2,703.
there we go, okay, so probably enough for
One newsletter.
Yeah, so we'll put something then in the newsletter about that, and you will need to go to, some of the, so I think it's gonna cause a little kerfluffle, but as far as I'm concerned, we're all in the same boat, and we will do our best to just get it up on the website and.
And then the warrant article you're thinking would be to have that separate warrant article for like $7,000, right,
Yeah.
to fund the
Yeah.
going forward.
Whatever.
And do a subscription,
Oh, boy, yeah, but that would
but
take.
that's all
That's-
different.
Oh, yeah, and then you're talking about technology and record keeping that's.
Mhm.
Paying the credit card fee.
And then the postage gets funky and.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great, but that's for better minds than mine, that's for sure.
Then it's a real magazine.
Yeah. So this little hometown thing, has grown increasingly expensive, and even though we are bringing in revenue,
No.
with another line item. Exactly, so thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Hello, Linda Prashadney, 16 Hemlock Court. I just want to follow up on that statement. Is there a way that we can opt in for paperless?
I don't think so,
And
because
install a way
they-
to opt in for paperless?
I think that's something to,
I think because it's
It's-
posted on the website, as soon as the publication is made available, I mean, they can go there at any time. They don't necessarily need to opt in.
but it's mailed,
But it's always mailed to me.
bulk mail, so it's like
Right.
all Nottingham residents, so it's not like,
It would be twice as expensive
Right.
to do the mailing individually,
Right.
yeah.
because you get a discount on the mail.
It sounds like a good idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds great.
But unfortunately, they
Oh,
figured out, yeah.
So that's why I can't opt in for paperless for the tax invoice, like I know.
No, you
no, you
You
can
can.
do that, but those are mailed
Only if I
independently.
pay online, will they let me opt in for paperless. The only way you can sign up for paperless, looking at the website or our page, is that you have to pay your bill online, and once you pay your bill online, then you can opt in for paperless. But to pay your bill online, you have to pay an extra expense for your credit card. So that
That's
would make
ridiculous.
sense, and I'm not gonna do it, so.
That's ridiculous, I don't blame you.
I signed up and I don't know, can you look into that?
I will look into
If
that.
you can tell me a way, I'll do it, because
Okay.
Yeah.
I've looked all the ways online, and I couldn't find a way to do it, so. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Paperless, honestly, I have no, I don't think so,
Okay.
but I don't do that part. That's not my department.
Anybody else for public comment?
Jay Belichak, 106 Mount Road. I have time over 3 minutes.
Correct.
Who's the timekeeper?
I would think is
Aye.
Bill 3.
2 items. One, I want to thank Town Administrator White for coming through with some information I'm sure he wanted. Okay? But I'm going to say the only factual or information that was provided is that there's $100,000 limit on that bond. So I'm not going to put you all on the spot, but I'm going to ask you to identify by position, again, which positions are specifically covered in the Town of Nottingham under that surety bond. Not by name, by position.
Okay, and that would be a reference to the RSA that I also sent to you.
Understood?
Okay.
Okay. Number 2 is March 2022. Mr. Moran, Board of Selectmen, Mr. Decker, Budget Committee. The town voters approved warrant article 5, I believe it was, which increased the staffing in the fire department to 6 full-time members to cover 24/7, 6 days a week. I'm gonna ask, and I won't be on the spot, but for clarity and communication purposes, could the board at the next meeting identify how a 42-hour schedule is gonna cover that scheduling?
I think the schedule's still being finalized right now, right?
Okay, thank you.
That was less than 3 minutes.
Yep.
And
1 minute, 30 seconds.
that was
Did you make a comment?
Yes.
Stop.
Sandra Vilchop, 106 Mountain Road. First thing is a kind of a question statement. Is there a problem with having a mailbox at the end of the driveway here so that the mail service can deliver directly to the community center instead of having to pay for 2 different mailboxes in 2 different locations?
That's kind of what I was thinking of, but then I was like, all right, if we have 2 mailboxes, you know, because if the tax collector has to have a separate one,
Yeah, but
Then-
we could even have a bank of multiple boxes.
I guess we could do it like they do at apartment buildings.
Yes.
We could probably do that, if, I know that when I lived like so close to the post office, they wouldn't deliver. That was years ago. I don't know if that's still a thing anymore. But it would make sense if the post office is doing delivery and they can deliver here, we can save multiple post office boxes.
I can say that the SAU office has a mailbox across the street,
No.
and they're closer to the post office than we are.
So we should be able to do that then.
I would only, where we hear the reports of people losing stuff in the mail, now we're adding an extra person, maybe for the tax collector one. I'd hate to be like, I mailed it in, and then it disappears. Where if it makes it to the building, it stays in the building, and then with the tax collector picking it up.
Right, but if it's like a locked mailbox, like an apartment building, where you have to use the key.
I'm just saying when people, sometimes I get stuff for a different address or just, it's a very good idea because I don't understand why the ones down there in West Nottingham, it just adds another layer that somebody's taxing.
Could end up someplace else.
Ends up into the post office, then the post office has to correctly get it into the vehicle, and the vehicle has to correctly get it here. We've added 2 other steps where before it just has to make it into a mailbox, and then the tax collector picks it up there. I'm only worried about the tax stuff, the rest of it, most
How
of
did you do it in your former town?
the correspondences don't
There are
matter.
separate mailboxes, one for the town, one for the tax.
But a
collector.
physical mailbox? No PO box.
So,
No, not a physical mailbox, it was a PO box.
Oh, okay.
So,
Other PO, just separate PO box.
What did you say the cost for post office box was?
I think it was $82 a year, was it?
I pay $82 a year in Raymond.
So,
I can't imagine it's any different than any
yeah,
other
it's
town.
probably the same.
Just went up this year.
And it depends
Who's
on the
gonna look into
size.
this and how soon can it be initiated?
Well, I think it would take a while to initiate because you're talking about people that are probably mailing stuff to the PO box for the town. So you probably have to
Right, yeah.
run both for a period of time.
Right, probably.
Yeah, but who's
Through
gonna
media
look into
attachment.
this sooner than later?
Well, we'll ask Ellen to look into what other towns do and see legally what we're required to do.
And see if the post office would even entertain it.
Right.
I think that would be the best option, like Dawn was saying, is to go with almost like an apartment style where you have the lock boxes for the individual. Like if we have, 3 of them
Mhm.
or 2, whatever it may be.
Municipality, you might even be able to walk in the building and deliver.
That would be nice.
And then perhaps you could even
They do that
look
for
into
businesses.
having the
They do.
individual departments, like just highway get their own, just recycling get their own mail. Does the fire department get their own mail?
That should come to the town.
I would go, well, I'm not sure why you would have to go to the town, but that's your decision.
Yeah, so we'll look into it.
Okay, I have another, it's more of a statement question, I guess, with regards to the New England Watercross.
I have to commend them for being responsible, unless it is an obligation for them to run the event with an EMS service, I'm not sure. But absolutely, they should have somebody with qualifications and an ambulance on scene. And I believe they had mentioned they were either in the process or already have a contracted ambulance.
They have,
They have a, can
they've
you,
contracted with them.
who is that contract?
I believe it was with Ricker, wasn't it?
No,
That had come through this year.
Do you have it there for any time?
Golden Cross.
Okay. So they are sticking with them, because I also heard them say that, well, unless, we would like to give it to Nottingham because they're local, they're here, and now they have 2 ambulances. So I guess the question would be for them, if you have a contract and you break a contract, you're gonna pay a price. So do they actually have this contract? Be aware before any paperwork is signed.
I don't think she was saying she wanted to give it to Nottingham this year. I think she's saying years moving
Well,
forward.
she's here, can we ask her?
She's
not-
not.
So she's okay, well, I would get that information verified, before that occurs.
They do have to provide proof of that before the event takes place.
Okay, and is that just one ambulance?
We'd have to, you can ask them to provide
Yeah,
a contract.
Because the other thing that is a concern is in the event that that ambulance has an emergency on the scene and is no longer there because they're transporting, what happens? Does that then default to the town of Nottingham? Because it's only fair to let the services that are necessary
Ellen, you need
be
to put
provided.
They look bad, I need a battery. I think we're still good.
Slow. Okay.
What happened?
I thought she had to plug in the video because it was the
Camera went up.
I got
Oh, we thought it did.
Do I have to repeat myself?
No.
Okay. No.
It's still running.
So that will be also
Yeah, we'll ask for the contract, yeah.
with them. Okay, and my final statement question was, you were mentioning emails regarding select board members, department heads, correct? So I imagine that John will be assigned,
I do have one.
you do have it, you do have one?
Yeah.
And where can I find those emails?
It should be on the town website.
Yep, it's right on the town website under the Board of Selectmen. You can direct link to it, but it's the first initial last name, so his is J Decker at Nottingham.
Okay, but it's there, because I'm
Yeah,
not remembering.
it's correct. Yeah.
Okay, and what about other department heads?
Other department heads should be posted on the website as well.
And they are current?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm almost certain they're current. I went through and did the board and committee membership, and I tried to make sure that we removed any people that were no longer with the town. So I will double check that, but for the most part, I think they're correct.
Okay, so specifically, the current fire chief is,
I will have to look at that one because I don't think I've touched the fire department's page. I have a list of updates that I
how
have
long
to
has
make
he
to that.
been fire chief?
He was appointed officially in February. Yes. But I believe he is still using the same email address, or I just initiated a nottingham-nh.gov email address for him.
So he has a current.
He does. I just initiated it today, I believe it was. So I don't necessarily know that he is actively using it yet.
But that is the expectation.
That is the expectation, correct?
Like if I mailed you
Yes,
TA at Nottingham, you would respond. If I mail John Decker, he's gonna
Correct.
respond. Any department head.
correct.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I'm Robin Marshall, 189 Old Turnpike Road.
I'm sorry, can you speak louder?
Sure, it's Robin Marshall, 189 Old Turnpike Road. And I support the Nottingham newsletter. I love getting it printed. I didn't even know it was in peril to be discontinued, but hopefully it will still stay online if they discontinue the other. But the other thing I have is not really in reference to anything that was discussed tonight. It's about the recycling center that lost power this past week. And there was no alert, and it's really a hassle to go. I understand Mother Nature happens. But there was 3 of us in a matter of 2 minutes that all of a sudden faced a closed gate with no reason or what happened. So I asked Wayne on Saturday, when I hate to go on Saturday, I said, hey, you know, what happened? They lost power. And I said, well, is there any way that you can get it so Nixle will report out to the town? And he said he tried to call the town office, and there was no answer. There was nobody there. So I'm just hoping that they can find a resolution, whether they can contact Nixle directly, or there's some solution that we get notices if roads are closed in town with the police. But if there's something like that happens, it would just be very helpful. One lady had sticky trash in her truck, and I felt really bad. I just waited till the next day. So that's all. It's not really a complaint more.
It's a pain.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's.
No, we're made aware.
Yeah, no, it's terrible when that happens.
I'm not complaining. I
That's
just,
what I'm saying, it's a pain in the butt.
yeah, it's,
Excuse my language.
yeah, it was. and
You
it
load
was-
it up, you go there, it's not open, you think about.
And then it was preloaded, it was open like 2 minutes
And
before.
Nixle is so helpful.
It is. And we did, I addressed that with Wade, the supervisor over there this morning. So he had tried to contact the town office. We close at noontime, and he had tried to call at 2 o'clock. So unfortunately, we've set up a protocol so he can contact, and we can at least get an announcement out on the website, and then I can let the police department know, because they do the Nixle alert. So
Perfect.
unfortunately, it was an inconvenience on Friday, but we're hoping to correct it moving forward.
No, I told him I'd come and I'd ask, so we can hopefully clear up the communications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Less complaints for them, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Marsh.
Almost an hour out. That was a long one, right?
It was, so they lost power, and then they lost phase 3 power. So it was right around 2 o'clock. I think they waited around for about a half an hour and then shut the facility down.
So I'm just looking for a point of clarification here with the town administrator. What I'm showing currently on the website for Matt Curry, all caps NFRD Chief, Nottingham C2 at Comcast.net.
That's the prior email address that I believe he was using,
Okay, so
so
then
it will be updated.
Incorrect.
Any other public comment? And you needed a non-public?
Yes, under A and B, please.
A and B.
All right, I'll make a motion to enter non-public for RSA 91-A:3, 2, A and B.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Matt Sherlin, seconded by Steve Welch.
Aye, Steve Welch.
Hi, John Becker.
Hi, Tim DeBrio.
I'm not sure.
I really like
We will come back out in non-public to officially close the meeting. Thank you, Nottingham.
I